Christine Blasey Ford says she is terrified to be testifying, but says she believes it is her civic duty to come forward and speak. And really, the stakes in this hearing could not be higher. 448 pages long, so some light reading. It is divided into 2 volumes. The first dealing with this question of collusion, which is at least the layman's term that we are using, and the second dealing with this question of obstruction. The collusion portion, a lot of that is blacked out. Digging a little deeper into the data, while Mark Harris dominated in the Republican suburbs of Union County, it's over in Mecklenburg County, the Charlotte suburbs, where Dan McCready just could not make up the difference. The justice that I was watching and most interested in hearing what he had to say today was Brett Kavanaugh, because he replaced Anthony Kennedy, who was long seen as kind of the swing justice on this issue. Just to give you a better sense of the power of the storm surge, this trailer here was originally parked way over there in front of the store before the storm began. It was supposed to serve as a sort of buffer against the winds. After all the pomp and circumstance is over, some Louisiana students may choose to pack their bags, load the car, and head out of state, maybe for a new job. Here in Nags Head, the winds continue to pound the coastline, the rain growing more intense. But really, at this point, because we are so far north of the eye and the track of the hurricane continues to track a little bit more south, the concern here is really flooding. I am live right now amongst a scary pack of tigers. We are live along the parade route right now. We're, of course, a little less than an hour away from kickoff time, and I'm here with Peggy. You are in charge of this float, so why the tiger theme?
There's no evidence that we've seen.
Senator Tom Tillis defiant and standing behind the embattled Supreme Court nominee.
He was extremely patient with unfair questions being cut off, but he maintained his poise.
For hours Thursday, Tillis and other lawmakers took turns going behind closed doors to read the results of an FBI investigation into allegations against Judge Brett Kavanaugh. The Supreme Court pick is accused of sexual misconduct by a handful of women. Republicans say the new round of investigations proved nothing.
No corroboration of any allegation that's been made, not any corroboration.
Democrats say that's because the investigation was insufficient. Lawyers for Kavanaugh accuser Christine Blasey Ford say the FBI did not interview her or a list of people they say could have helped corroborate her story.
It was never designed to get to the truth. It was never designed to get to the bottom of it.
At the end of the day, it all comes down to a handful of moderate lawmakers. Will they vote to confirm him? At least 2 have already given what could be considered a hint, saying that they found the FBI investigation to be thorough.
We believe Christine Ford.
With tensions flaring and the world watching, lawmakers now prepare for a make-or-break few days, with a key procedural vote slated for Friday and a possible confirmation vote this weekend. In Washington, Kevin Frey, Spectrum News.
There you go.
With a hammer and some elbow grease,
All this is mortars and tenons.
Theodric Givens can match wits with any carpenter. His latest project, a dining room table set for a couple who flooded last August.
They came, they wanted to buy, but they didn't really have the funds. So I turned around and told them, I said, well, look, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to build a dinette set.
But unlike most living in the Baton Rouge area, Givens never saw those floodwaters firsthand.
I've been confined 41 years, 7 months, and 1 day.
Convicted of second-degree murder in New Orleans in 1976, he's now in his 60s. He has so far spent 2/3 of his life at Angola prison.
I done lost all my hair. Look at that. I don't have no hair on top of my head.
During those decades, Givens learned a trade, rebuilding his life one project at a time.
I look at where I come from, and I know I'm still not where I would like to be. But I'm satisfied at the progress. I'm happy with me.
Sentenced to life, he was destined to live the rest of his years behind bars. But as of just a few weeks ago, he now has a chance at freedom.
We have the district attorneys on board. We have the sheriffs on board.
Earlier this year, in a rare moment of bipartisanship, state lawmakers approved 10 bills overhauling Louisiana's criminal justice system. Part of that reform, a chance at parole for about 130 lifers convicted in the 1970s, including Givens. When they were first sentenced, they were promised a shot at parole, but a technicality in the law prevented them from acting on it. Now they'll get that chance.
This is not an automatic release. This has to go through a process, and the victims and the DAs, everybody will have their say-so.
Not just one, but 2 homes, the other across the street, flattened by the brute force of Florence. In some cases, that storm surge around here reaching several feet. Now, we have already seen the impact across this area, and really two different stories are playing out. In some cases, folks already looking to the cleanup process, looking to rebuild. In other cases, like those here, folks have no place to call home. Everywhere you look, Florence left its mark. Boats dumped on dry land, river water washed into homes.
We've sprayed several times with an anti-mold agent.
In some cases, they are already starting the gutting out process, removing the floor and walls. Many count themselves as lucky, saying it could have been worse.
Everything we sell is just stuff that we can replace. It's luxury items.
At the Franklin Antique Mall, they're clearing everything out, separating what can be kept from what needs to be tossed.
We got people here that we don't know who they are helping out today because they want us to be successful.
Just to give you a better sense of the power of the storm surge, this trailer here was originally parked way over there in front of the store before the storm began. It was supposed to serve as a sort of buffer against the winds. The governor, who surveyed the damage in New Bern Monday, says the recovery process will last months, possibly even years.
Our infrastructure, we got to help businesses get back on their feet, and we got to help people.
But while some are able to rebuild their homes, others have no home to go back to. The storm surge flattening whole buildings in one neighborhood, a place where people just do not have the money to rebuild.
For these people that live here, they're really out of options right now, and that's unfortunate. And they're going to need help. They really are.
Back in this community now, this is a sign that is sitting right next to one of these flattened homes. It reads, "Yes, we need help. God bless America." And so that begs the question, what happens to these families now? Who will help them?
I could do the wall over a longer period of time. I didn't need to do this.
As part of his plan to pay for the border wall, the president is calling for diverting funding from military construction projects. In the Tar Heel state, that could add up, potentially impacting $190 million currently assigned to projects on North Carolina military bases. That, according to a list compiled by Democrats on the House's Budget Committee. On that list of possibly vulnerable funding, more than $30 million for new and replacement special operations training facilities at Fort Bragg, $60 million for an aircraft maintenance hangar at Cherry Point Air Station, and $33 million for a replacement clinic at New River Air Station. And those are just 2019 projects. Construction first announced in past years could also be impacted, estimated to cost hundreds of millions of dollars more.
I've expressed to the president, that if he has to do that, don't do it at the expense of military construction at Fort Bragg.
Even before the president signed the emergency order, North Carolina Congressman Richard Hudson started sounding the alarm, joining on to this letter to the president urging him to avoid taking money from military projects. The president, however, had other plans, announcing he might dip into as much as $3.6 billion from the military construction budget, but only after first using funding from the U.S. Treasury and anti-drug programs. A senior Trump administration official tells me so far they do not have a list of projects that could be affected by the emergency declaration. However, that official says they are focusing on projects that would not harm, quote, the lethality or readiness of the armed forces. Asked for a reaction to the Democrats' list of at-risk projects, a spokesman for Republican Senator Tom Tillis wrote, he has concerns about any potential cuts to our state's military construction projects, as all of these projects aim to improve the training and readiness for the brave men and women who serve our nation. In Washington, Kevin Frey, Spectrum News.